Welcome. Glad to see all you guys here. This is pretty cool. Look around the room. You're looking at some of the best Windows beta testers in the world. You guys are great. Thanks for all your help. I'm going to talk today in two kind of phases. The first thing, where'd that go? The first thing I want to talk about today is sort of an overview of the product. And this is a little bit of marketing, a little bit of positioning, but it's also the big picture. It's if you're talking to other people and they say, what is Windows XP? What's new about it? Where does it fit into the grand scheme of things? Most of you have had a chance to play with it, use it, some in your daily lives, some as part of your testing, some as part of your job, some for fun. We've got a diverse group of users here. But a lot of times you tend to drill in or know or see or think about the product in terms of one aspect or another aspect. And so this is going to give you a chance to step back and see kind of a big picture. I'm going to touch on a couple of things this morning, just sort of run through the bullet points quickly. They're here as much for reference as anything else, because later in the day somebody's going to come in and do a half an hour or an hour talk on just that topic and give you some demos. So I don't need to steal all their thunder and tell you everything that they're going to tell you again. So I'm just sort of going to preview things. The sort of history in thinking about things, we sort of have these big buckets. For businesses, we have the Windows 2000 product. And I know some of you use it at home, and actually I do too. But with Windows 2000 in business, the messages were that it was reliable, manageable, great for new devices, really good on laptops, really good power management story in businesses, and internet enabling on a server and on a workstation side. The companion product, Windows Millennium, is positioned for the home. And that's for consumers. It focused on digital media, the PC health, the new home networking work that was done there, and the internet experience as opposed to the internet enabling your business. And then you can see there's a number of different features or attributes to each of these areas. Well, where are we going with this? What we're trying to do is take the family product lines, the Windows 9X family into Millennium, and sort of replace that with the Windows XP Home Edition. If I say personal, somebody hit me. I'm trying to learn how to say Home Edition. The Windows NT product family, the Professional, which was the desktop workstation in most large enterprise corporate environments, family is growing into the Windows XP Professional. And then the server families, which are coming out later this year or early next year, are going to be based on the same code base. So in 2001 and 2002, we will be getting to all of our Windows products, our Windows family, built on one common code base, and that code base is what was the Windows NT and Windows 2000 family of code bases. And so that's going to give us a lot of benefits. There's two basic versions in the client or home versions of Windows XP. The server has a slightly different product name right now, still looking at some of that, but Windows XP is the Windows XP Home Edition, which is home for home users, and the XP Professional, which is for business users and for some power home users. There's a lot of people who in this room probably will want to run Pro at home for some of the advanced features, the remote desktop, the ability to dial in, some things like that. You may even be running a small domain environment in your home or dialing into a domain at work. In the business workspace, XP Professional is the successor to Windows 2000. It's an incremental upgrade. It's not a significant change. From a perspective of looking at it, yeah, some of the new UI has got some of the new colors and things like that. But if you know how to use Windows 2000, you're not going to be surprised by anything in XP. So there's not a huge training barrier, even though it looks a little bit different. And the other thing to think about XP Professional is that it's a superset of XP Home Edition. Yesterday afternoon, in one of our internal discussion aliases at Microsoft, some of the people that work in some of the remote field sites around the US and around the country who haven't yet been as fully briefed on the product. In fact, some of the people at Microsoft don't even know as much about it as you guys do already. And somebody said, well, I'm running Windows 2000 at home, and I want to run the Home Edition. And I said, no, you should just run Pro. That's the upgrade from Windows 2000 Personal. He said, well, I want to run games. And I said, well, so run Professional. It's a superset. It runs the games as well as XP Home. It's the same product from that perspective. And he said, well, I thought it was more like Windows 2000 and didn't run games as well. I'm like, where do you get these ideas from? It's just a superset. XP Pro is a great advanced user feature set. So, that's the sort of thing where we've created this mindset where people think there's such a difference, and now that we're getting to products that are built on the same code base, we've got to get people to understand that. There are several trends that we look at as we're looking at the business side of the operating systems business. Windows 2000 has got the reliability, the low-cost support, and default laptop in the businesses. So we're moving businesses well into that space. In consumers, they're looking for a number of things that help them in their daily lives. Most, when I use the term consumers, I'm talking about people who use computers at home, moms, dads, sisters, brothers, friends that aren't computer enthusiasts, that aren't computer geeks, that don't like playing with computers and don't like understanding operating systems. They just want to use the computer as a tool. My wife just wants to log in, check her mail, read a couple of web pages, research our next visit to Disneyland, or figure out what kind of an airfare she can get when we go back to visit my parents on the East Coast next summer. That's what she uses the internet for. She doesn't care what the operating system is as long as it's not blue screening or causing problems on her. When I change it, she gets mad. It's something different, right? So consumers want simplicity, right? Simplicity, and it just works. So we look at the scenarios that they do, right? What are the scenarios she's doing? Just browsing the internet, getting connected, reading email, things like that. And then the other thing that I find that people like that want, or that we find, and that research shows, and I think it's probably overstating the obvious, is they want it to be dependable and reliable. They don't want it to crash. They want it to work all the time. They want it always on. My wife was not a computer geek at all, so getting her to use a computer in the last few years has been interesting. But what really got her over the curve was having that always-on DSL connection and leaving the computer on 24/7. Just walks in, moves the mouse, does her thing, and walks away. And it only takes a minute. It doesn't take 5 minutes to boot the PC and dial into a modem and get a connection, and maybe it didn't connect and you have to retry. So, and when the DSL line is down, boy, do I hear about it. And then where's the industry going? The industry is important to Windows. The industry is the PC manufacturers that make PCs, from the big guys, the Compacts, HPs, Dells, and people like that, to the small system builders, the guys that work out of a local neighborhood shopping center, office building, building custom PCs, usually tuning for performance, or looking at a low-cost segment. Specialized knowledge, specialized market segments that they're targeting. To software vendors, I know we have a couple of software developers here, ISVs as we use in the term, and hardware vendors, people that sell display cards, networks, modems, whatever the, plug-in scanners, plug-in cameras. The industry is actually expanding. The PC industry used to be PCI and ISA plug-in cards, right? Now it's plus USB devices and parallel port devices, scanners, and over the last couple of years, scanners got popular, and printers, of course, were always there. But now it's expanding into digital cameras. Those are now a PC peripheral as well as a consumer electronics piece. You're going to see some interesting demos of media player devices that people are using PCs to connect to sound. So the PC is becoming, the industry that we work with is becoming a lot larger. So this is actually talking about it. We have some scenarios at the top. Things that people do with PCs, and those things are expanding. It used to be you just did email, wrote your documents, and did your spreadsheets. 10 years ago, that was it. You didn't do all this cool stuff. Now we've added more communication and collaboration, better creativity, and this whole new entertainment thing, and we're all trying to figure out how it fits in to an entertainment. We've got the TV, the stereo, sometimes the home theater, which is a blending of the TV and the stereo, and the computer, and the music industry starts to fold into that. And you see that in some of the bottom. The bottom is how PCs are used, as opposed to the scenarios. These are sort of things that we're talking about. These are things where they're always on and always connected. I just sort of gave you an example of why that can be so important. It's convenient for us geeks. It's what makes it usable for the average person. The PC becomes a device hub for all these neat devices. The PC becomes the web services hub, the web client. It's how you access this huge array of information that's out there. And the form factors are changing, right? PCs are becoming different shapes. The devices that embody computing, again, you're going to see some of these, are also taking on different form factors. So all of that's a lead up to, if we had those 3 or 4 buckets for Windows 2000 and Windows Millennium, what are the big things that we're looking at to position Windows XP? Been a thread on the news groups, for those of you who are active in the beta news groups, in the last 2 days or so. What do I tell people about XP? How do I sell it? How do I, what do people want to know about it? And so this is a great slide to think about if you've got 5 minutes to tell somebody about it. It's got an intelligent new design. It's easier to use. It's approachable, simplified. A lot of things are easy. The logon experience to have multiple users sharing a PC is better. A lot of the things that are in Windows now, you just want to do your task. You don't want to understand how Windows works. You want it to help you get, if you're using Windows as opposed to using an app, you just want it to work. Connected, so it allows you to connect to devices. It allows you to connect to the web. It allows you to connect to friends and family, and you're going to see some interesting things coming in that space. And it allows you to share information, and also helps ensure that we're safer from outside threats. So the new firewall gives you a much better level of protection than you had in previous versions of Windows, just built in. And then the last thing, and this is probably the thing that a lot of people have, so the first thing people have glommed onto is cool new user interface. It's pretty, it's interesting, it's vibrant, it's more alive. Other people say, you know, I don't like it. I like that plain gray, stark, Windows, interface from years past. And that's fine too. I mean, we obviously give people the choice, but they say that's what I think about as a professional computing environment, and that's great. But isn't that a bit of Microsoft brainwashing for the last 10 years that you don't like something different? Not intentionally, but that's just what we've gotten used to. So it's a new, vibrant visual design. The other thing that people say is it's dependable, it's reliable, it's built on Windows 2000. Windows 2000, the most reliable thing we've ever shipped as far as Windows. Rock solid in almost all cases. And we've built on that. We are continuing to drive our stress numbers, our reliability, our driver stability a lot higher. And you're going to hear a little bit about how we're doing some of that. Some of you were here, about half of you were here last night for a reception. People who made it into town early, we just sort of set up an unofficial reception. We had a great time. Sorry the rest of you couldn't make it. But they got to hear some of the stories about the day-to-day processes we use on how we're trying to make Windows better. And then the last thing is Windows is more helpful. The help system is able to give you the help, and it's more supportable, and you're able to help other people. So this is sort of just a quick slide on some of the features. Simple digital photos, richer communications, improved help. Just another way to look at the same basic view. The intelligent new design, I probably jumped into a little bit of this on the previous slide. I tend to do that. But so enabling better access, I'll just kind of skip through these because I know you can read them, and they're in your deck so that you can use when you're talking to people. The visual cleanup, basically, the more things that are stuck on the desktop and the start menu and all over a PC, the less people use because it's too confusing. They use the couple of things they know about, and they don't use anything else. So by simplifying the start menu, by simplifying the desktop and cleaning some of that up, we get an easier to use experience. The notification area cleanup, if you haven't seen it yet, where it just collapses what we used to call the fruit salad of taskbar notifications and hides those that aren't giving you any new information, that are just there to give you a sort of a status view. And then the visual design. Visual design is actually very important. You see it in PCs, you see it in cars, you see it in consumer electronics, and you take it for granted. Visual design is something that's becoming very important to the PC industry. We can't be just that plain gray, square window frame look anymore because people want more out of their computers, just like everything else they see. Connected to everything. Something that we're building is better networking. The built-in internet connection sharing with the firewall, the ability to build home networks fairly easily for most home users that are starting to connect their multiple PCs. A lot of people at home have multiple PCs these days because a lot of high schools are requiring them, a lot of colleges require them, so the kids will have a PC. And they aren't connected today, but they're starting to think about it. You'll see a lot of people here at Microsoft are using the 802.11b networking cards. We're sitting in the back connected up. Things like that, as they get into the high schools, some of the high schools I know use that starts to come into the home. Improved mobility so that you can seamlessly move between work at home, plug things in, and automatically connect. The wireless connections is kind of interesting. For those of you who came through SeaTac Airport, SeaTac currently is running a trial of an 802.11 network in the airport. With Windows XP, you walk in, you boot, the automatic wireless configuration will see the SeaTac network and configure for it. With Windows 2000 or previous versions of Windows, you actually have to go into some control panel and change a few settings and change it to point to the network and say, I want to use this network, and then you can use it. So it used to be we had this list of 10 instructions you carried if you wanted to connect at SeaTac, and it would take a lot longer. Now I walk in, open up my portable, plug in my netcard boot, I'm online instantly. I've got a local area network. I hit my VPN connection, I'm connected to work. I can download my mail and be on the airplane in less than 3 minutes. So that's pretty cool. That's a scenario where everything just works, where you're connected and features that are in Windows XP just work. Digital photography. The new scanner and camera wizard. You just plug in a media device with photos, and it's going to walk you through how to import them and then how to print them. I don't know if you've seen the photo print wizard. Wonderful improvement. Again, people think of taking pictures and sending them off and getting them developed and getting back a stack of prints, and then they look through the prints. They don't want to go in and tune the color and tune the crop and rotate and futz with all their pictures. That's something that photo hobbyists do. But the average person, they just want to see their pictures, suck them in, print them, send them to somebody to share them, send them off to a website and get hard copies. We've made all of that easier. Music and video, the media player, they're going to come up with some neat demos of some of the things that they can do now with the new media player and movie maker, which allows you to assemble short movie clips. So as we moved from the old bitmaps into the more dynamic images, as we move into music, and now we're moving into the movie maker area where we give simple ability to work with your media in that format. And then the last bullet, the dependable Windows engine built on the Windows 2000 code base. Improve reliability. We run daily stress. We have tools that beat on drivers, that beat on applications, that stress them under low memory. Lots of calls. We'll load an application over and over and exit and test for memory leaks. Just an amazing array of automated tests that we run every night on hundreds, if not thousands of machines to just wring out every last possible flaw in every device driver and every application we can find. And then if something we can fix, we fix it. If it's something we need a vendor to fix, we let them know and work with the vendors very closely. You're going to hear in the application and device session, the compatibility session, how closely and how much we work with vendors to try and help them make their products work great, because when customers see a computer crash, they don't care whose vendor, which person's fault it is. It's Windows, it's their PC, it crashed, they're not happy. So we have a huge effort to get the drivers and device support into the product and get it reliable. And then we're putting in some of the initial net building block services, .NET building block. The Passport service is evolving to becoming a more broad-based user identity and authentication with some fairly good guarantees of privacy of your data and protections that we're putting in place. And I know we've got a lot of trust to earn there, but I think it's a neat way to do things that will give, over time, the ability to do a lot of authentication on the web, which needs that stuff. Real-time presence and communication, improvements in the way you communicate with your buddies and friends in both email and in the real-time communications that we're working on. And things like dynamic update, where we can help maintain a PC, deliver new device drivers, deliver operating system updates, download them in the background when you're not using your bandwidth, and then make them available to install. Let you know what you need to do. You and I go to Windows Update fairly regularly and check and see, is there a new fix? Is it more stable? Can I get more features, for my device drivers? And things like that, and maybe even hunt around a lot of third-party sites for device drivers. In fact, I know a lot of people here like to look for the latest and greatest video drivers. But the average users, your friends that use computers that aren't computer geeks, don't even go to Windows Update, right? They never know how to update it. They never get word of the security fixes. So we're trying to make it easier to help them through that. The Help and Support Center, the remote assistance capability, if you haven't tried it yet, is really cool. I had a scenario with my wife. She called me up one day. She was on a website using Windows XP at home, and she was trying to place an order, and it was giving her a message. She couldn't figure out what to do. And instead of trying to figure out how to navigate a website I'd never seen over the telephone, I just said, go here, click on this, connect to my computer, set up a remote connection to my work computer. I dialed in, and then I finished, filling out the form. It turned out to be rather extensive. She actually had to get in the car and go pick up our daughter at school, and I'm still controlling my home computer, making this order and processing, putting in the credit card number and going through all that. So it's not just for helping somebody through a problem with Windows or how to set something. It's whatever they need help on. App compatibility, ton of work to bring the Win9X family of application compatibility up into, he's giving me the high sign. I got a ton more, so I'll skip this. Ton of work in app compat. And device compat to improve it. So the second phase of, and I'm skipping over those only because you're going to hear a lot more about those. I'll probably talk more about some of the other things. I'm going to talk for a few minutes about where we are in the beta program and how we test the beta software. I hope to run a video. Why don't I wait till the end and we'll skip over it and run it. If we're out of time, we'll try and run it during one of the breaks or something, the daily cycle video for Windows. Right now through sometime in June, and I'll leave that sometime in June as rather a vague number for obvious reasons. We're going into what we call our RC1 gradual lockdown. We have to, if you know much about software development, you know the more changes you make, the more problems you introduce. If we make 1,000 changes to the code, we're going to have 100 of those come back as either didn't get fixed right or it created a new problem. So you have to taper down the number of changes you make and just test in order to get a major milestone, a beta or a release candidate out. So we are starting over the last few weeks and more intensely over the next few weeks to what we call ratchet down the number of fixes we take every day, which means the bar for those fixes gets higher and higher. It has to be a more important, more critical fix, meaning that it hits more people, it's a broader scenario, it's a serious problem, a crash, a data loss, no boot, won't set up, things like that, and something we can address, right? If it's in a third-party driver, sometimes we have to work with the vendor and we can't always address it. So the bar ratchets up, and we get pretty hardcore about the kind of fixes we can take. At the same time, we're trying to make RC1 almost the final product. We want to postpone as very few issues past RC1 as possible. Very late in the cycle, we'll postpone a few more, but right now, we're basically telling the developers, you have to get it done and in the build now, or it isn't going to be there. You've got to get the bug fixes in now. You've got to get the issues addressed. You've got to get the quality and reliability and stability up. You've got to get all your features working. We're doing interim builds. An interim build is a term we use. Internally, we call it an IDW, an internal development workstation. It's an old term from the NT development group, which meant that it was stable enough for developers to use on their main daily machines. You can develop, you can use it for mail, you can use it for productivity. Might have a couple of glitches, but it's been through enough sort of looking at. We either know what the issues are or we've backpropped some fixes. I don't need quite that quality for you guys, and I don't need quite that level of quality for the OEMs and hardware vendors and software vendors that need regular builds to test. So we're trying to get those out every couple of weeks. As an example, the PC manufacturers have a test team that are working with us on Windows XP. So if you go down to Compaq in Houston, you can find a group that's focused on testing Windows XP on Presarios. They do upgrades, they do test their apps that they install, and they have a 2-week test pass. If I don't get them a build every 2 weeks or so, those guys sit around idle. And of course, if they sit around idle, somebody's going to find something else for them to do, and they're not going to be testing Windows XP anymore. So some of the reason we try and get a build out every 2 or 3 weeks for the beta sites is also for the industry, so that they can keep their test cycles running and stay on current builds and regress the bugs that they've reported in the past. Between RC1 and RTM, we're going to focus almost exclusively on customer scenario, customer feedback, critical issue bugs, right? Things that we find from those builds, maybe some holdovers that we still had from the pre-RC1 interim builds or even from Beta 2, but mostly we're going to be focusing on the latest builds and the things that are really important to fix in those builds. This is how we build an operating system. We ratchet it down. With each milestone, we set the bar higher and focus on driving to the best quality we can. A lot of people are worried about the fact that we have a hard date and that's a possible quality risk. It's not. For this point in the project, before we set that hard date, we can see far enough ahead. We know what we have to do. We know how long it takes. We've done it before. We've got lots of past operating systems to compare to. We know our fix rates. We know how long it takes to get the build stable. We know how long we need to test it before we can release it. We have plenty of time. It's not going to be easy. We have plenty of time to drive all the quality and all the reliability we need and make our ship dates. And we will actually have plenty of time to keep taking a few more fixes to get the quality up as high as we can before we hit our dates, the way we're looking at now. So I'm not worried about that at all. That kind of thing doesn't scare me. The big clock ticking out front, that's for marketing purposes. The development team knows their milestones. They know what they need to do, and we're just going to go do it. It's just execution at this point. After RTM, some interesting things happen. We release to manufacturing. We send off a stack of CD images to various groups. We have personal or home edition and pro. We have the OEM full install version that the PC manufacturers install. We have the OEM upgrade version that the PC manufacturers send out to the people that already have a PC that purchased it recently as part of their technology guarantees. We have the retail fulls. We have retail upgrades. We have the select version, which is for volume licensing. We have the symbol CD. We have the check or debug version. So we have about 30 images we end up releasing, CD images. The differences in the code is there isn't a difference in the executable code. The difference is in setup behavior, license terms, help files, things like that. The basic code is the same on all these different flavors. But all these different images have to be verified, released to manufacturing, shipped off to the PC manufacturers, who then start their manufacturing cycle so that they can have PCs available at launch, shipped off to be manufactured into millions of CDs, which are pressed. Then they're sent for our retail sales. Then those CDs then head off to another place where they're assembled with books, boxes, reg cards, and everything else, and shrink wrapped into the boxes. Then those boxes are put on big pallets and shipped out to stores around the country and around the world. And we're doing this in the first 30 days, we're going to release something like 13 different languages of our 28 languages. So 30 images times 13 languages being manufactured, shipped worldwide on pallets with signs on them that says "Do not display until October 25th." They get into the warehouses, they get into the back rooms of Circuit City, Best Buy, Costco, your local computer stores, and it is just a huge logistical and manufacturing engine that produces Windows in the roughly 2-month period between when we RTM and when we launch. So that's why that delay is there, in case you're ever wondering, because a lot of people have to work probably harder than we worked in the last few weeks up to RTM to get all of that done. And our marketing and operations groups do that. So I'll skip the video for a minute and talk about some of the test programs. Why do we run customer test programs, beta programs, and other forms? We run them to get feedback, to find out issues, to let people evaluate the product, let people learn the product, to get experience on it, test it with their own internal applications, test it with the scenarios they use it in, just lots of different reasons. So we have what I grouped into feedback programs. The technical beta, which is, you're going to see about 15 to 16,000 US and then another 5 to 6,000 internationally, so a little over 21,000 people are involved. The JDP, which is our joint development partners, which is about 20 or 30 large enterprises that are working very closely with us and the Microsoft Consulting Organization and product support to do on-site deployments to their desktops and to their servers in corporate environments. And that's the only way you uncover the unique issues that large enterprises have, is by doing live deployments. One of our JDP partners is actually Microsoft ITG, our internal group. We have, I think, 20,000 different users in Microsoft running Windows XP on their desktop today. We've got domain controllers, infrastructure servers, DNS, WINS, IIS servers, all into production deployment within Microsoft to test the product. Our PRD is real people, real data. 40 families chosen in DC, Detroit, Chicago, and Dallas or Denver, I think, where we've given them a PC, watch them do the upgrade, we videotape them, we do surveys. It's a high-touch program for casual end users. People that can't tell me, this is what I expected and this is what happened. They don't know what computers are supposed to do, so whatever it did, they assume is right. So we observe and videotape and watch them in real environments. That's a new program with Windows XP. What is HS Lab? I don't remember what that one is. The Microsoft rollouts, a friends and family program we have, which is where we encourage people within Microsoft, mostly within the development group, to nominate their friends or family that are not in their household and maybe not even in the same city, to send them a CD, to put them on the tech beta. These actually all go into the tech beta program itself as well. And get some experience where if they have a problem, maybe instead of coming to the news groups, they're going to call their friend at Microsoft, and we get a higher bandwidth, if you will, feedback on some of the issues and some of the scenarios that they're experiencing. How do we get feedback from these groups? The bug reports that you send in are the primary way we look for serious issues in the product. The comments dialog box gives us a way to track highly confusing dialog boxes, things that don't tell you what you want. And so the comments are supposed to be about that specific dialog box, and then we look at the ones that get the highest hits and fix the first 10 and look for the next 10 and fix those. Crash reports, same things. When you hit the little send button that says send in a crash report, it wraps up a bunch of data and sends it in. Rather than tracking those individually, they all go into a huge database. We look for patterns and we look for the ones that are the most common, fix those, and work our way down through the stack. So these are both what we call statistical or high volume reporting mechanisms. The news groups give us a sense, a pulse, how things are going, what people are thinking. And I didn't even add on to there the surveys that we run. The install surveys are a critical piece. Bug reports and crash reports tell us what's not working. The surveys tell us what percentage of the overall product that represents, right? So an install survey tells me how people were successful in setting up. Ian was telling you last night, I've been running these since Windows 98. Well, hurry up, Evan, I'm going to run a little long. I think you guys want to hear this, right? So we've been running the install surveys and tracking the progress. And basically, Windows 2000 had, every major build had a significant increase in the success rate. All my hardware worked. I was able to install successfully. All my apps worked, things like that. And got up into the low 90s for the final milestone before we released. We don't run the survey on the final RTM bits, so because it's a different animal at that point, so I can't get results back. But on RC3, we had some pretty good results. Beta 2 of Windows XP is already producing better numbers in some categories than Windows 2000 did at RC2. And in fact, where it's not producing better numbers, it's basically the same number. So we are basically at Windows 2000 compatibility, or, final release with Beta 2. Oh wait, but we're doing Windows 98 upgrades, we're running Windows 98 apps, and we're encouraging people to run consumer apps and games and things like that didn't run on Windows 2000. So the bar is higher, and we're running on more things, and we're doing a better job. So the surveys are really cool, the results we're getting back. The primary feedback, what are we looking for from beta programs? We can test APIs, we can run automated tests, we can test basic functionality here. We have hundreds of really smart testers that do a great job of testing every build every day. What do we need from the broader base? We need to expand our application compatibility. Our app compat testers can load an app, test 5 or 6 functions, kind of give it a sniff, says, yeah, it appears to work right. Somebody who uses an app every single day and knows every menu and every choice and every option and stresses it and runs big databases and big programs and huge graphic files, they use it completely differently. So I want to see the application compatibility on popular apps in ways that we can't test. I want to see the application compatibility on the thousands of apps that we don't have time to test. So that's the kind of things we look for from a beta program. Device compatibility, the same thing. The broad array of devices, all the different variations of some of the different display cards and net cards where it's the same basic model, but maybe the firmware is got a slight revision on it. The combinations of all of these devices, where you have this net card with this display card and this ACPI BIOS, may not work for you and may work fine for 42 other people. So it's how do we get those combinations tested and how do we find out those issues? Networking scenarios. We found in this beta, people use networking and set up their configurations in, as you know, very different ways than maybe we anticipated. And so we're reacting to that and improving our home networking wizard. The interesting thing is, in the past, about 5 to 7%, and it depends on where you are in the beta cycle, of the actual code fixes, the changes we make in the product, come out of beta. So it says that some people say, well, we're only doing that last little bit. If we didn't fix 5 to 7% of things in Windows, 5 to 7% of 100 million users is a lot of people that would have a pretty big problem, right? So it is a hugely valuable thing to have great beta testing and to really beat us up and hold our feet to the fire to make sure that the scenarios work. So those 5 to 7% are the things that we'd never have a chance of getting to here. The reason it's that low, in some ways, is because if it was higher, that would mean our own internal testers are incompetent, not doing their job, sitting around, drinking Cokes and whatnot. They've got to build 2 to 3 to 4 weeks ahead of you guys. And so if they file a bug before you, it doesn't count in that 5 to 7%, right? A lot of the bugs they find are fixed before you see a build. So hopefully they're doing a good job, but if they were only getting 90% of the bugs, I'd say that we weren't doing a good job testing internally, and I'd want to figure out why. If they were getting 99% of the bugs, I'd say, we got way too many people here doing testing because, that's a lot of coverage to get that last 5 to 7%. It takes 16,000 beta testers to find it. So I think that's a good number. I think that's the right way to run things. And then the other kind of programs we run are evaluation and experience programs, the preview programs. Some of you may be helping out the preview program sites understand and evaluate the product. We're not really looking for high volumes of feedback from these kind of groups. We're looking for people to get experience, to evaluate, to test in their corporate environments. MSDN, the developer network, is for developers to use testing the product. In the past, we've looked at people in MSDN that are giving us good feedback and folded those people in or invited them into the beta program. So the beta program is where we get the feedback. The MSDN kits that ship and the TechNet, which ships to corporate users, IT professionals, gives them a chance to get hold of the code, try it out in their environment, get an early look when they're ready. But it's not a high bandwidth, high feedback program. So those are the kind of things that we're looking for. Internal line of business apps at corporations, things that they use to run their business that you can't buy in a shrink wrap, and even if you could get a copy of it, I can't run it here. It needs to run in their environment. We need people to test that. I'll wrap up pretty quick, Evan. What's a bug? A bug is a report from somebody that says, this doesn't work right, I wish it did this, I don't understand this. Bugs range from crashes to, why don't you include such and such a feature. Bugs internally range from people doing specific tests, scripts, or automated tests, where they can say it didn't work the way it was supposed to automated tools that scan through the source code looking for issues that may or may not be real because it's an automated tool. And so it can find things that are suspicious We file a bug, we have somebody look at it, we say, no, that's not a problem, that's supposed to be that way, and hopefully go tune our automated tools so they don't flag that in the future. So bugs are just, I mean, we even track issues. Somebody says, I want to do this new feature. We put in a bug into our bug database, and it gives us a way to track and schedule and resolve and understand where we are on that. So we track everything as a bug, even though it's not necessarily a defect in the product or something that didn't work. Bugs that come in from beta sites go into the generic NT repro team. Paul Donnelly's team, they work for me. They're responsible for taking incoming bugs. We have a group of people that triage the bugs, looking for duplicates, looking for things that are like wish lists that we can consider for the future but aren't possible or feasible for this product. For random comments, we get some people using bug reports for things that where they just want to let us know their opinions. Kind of weed through all of that. And then once they get things down to the bugs that they think are real, non-duplicates, they've never heard of it before, can't match it up, they pass it on to the repro team. The repro team adds a second filter to this. They may say, oh, I know this one is a duplicate of something. If not, they try and get a repro case. They try and understand it, make sure that the description in the bug is good enough that they can reproduce it or the developer or tester can reproduce it. And once they get it to that stage, then we pass it over to the developer, the development team, development and test together. And they'll look at the bug, and then they might say, oh, it's a duplicate of some bug here. I mean, they're closer to their code than we are. But basically, it sort of goes through this filtering process, and then it gets resolved, either fixed or in one of the other statuses I'll talk about, I think, on the next slide. One of the things that we do is track the high-volume issues, things that get a lot of reports. We scan for duplicates, and we really track those and try and make sure that we're fixing those, because those are the things that we suspect are going to hit the most people if we get most reports on it. So some of the benefits that we got out of Beta 1 and pre-Beta 2 interim builds that we shipped out was that the highest volume of a Beta 1 issue was in the several hundred reports range. The highest volume Beta 2 issues were 1/4 of that and were different issues. So that says we fixed some things that were bothering a lot of people, and they aren't there anymore. They aren't showing up on the radar screen in high volume issues anymore. The other thing we do is for the OEMs, for the big PC manufacturers, the top 15 or so, we have a team dedicated to tracking priority issues for them so that when they're manufacturing new machines next fall, customers have the best possible experience. And this is to do with their OEM applets, how they pre-install, what their business models are, all kinds of things. We talked about comments and crash reporting, which are mainly for high volume, and the news groups. Where does all this feedback go? Well, it goes to the development teams. We also have, every morning at 9:30, we have what we call the war team, 9:30 to 10, 10:30 or 11, sometimes longer. It's anywhere from 20 to 50 people meeting in a very crowded conference room. A couple of you guys saw it last night, it's a boring conference room, big computer projection screen like this. We go through live data. We have an internal website where we roll up live data. We have different themes each day of the week, and Wednesdays are customer feedback day. We look at the beta feedback, we look at the crash reports, we look at the high volume comments. We make sure that we're getting traction on those. We see where we are, we see what progress we're making. We drill in on some of the individual bugs, assign owners. The news groups, the PSS group that does the primary support in the news group, will bring in a summary and say, here's some of the big issues we're seeing out of the news group. We don't use that for bug reporting, but again, it sort of gives us a pulse on where things are. So it goes into the highest levels of the company. Not all the way to Bill. I mean, he doesn't sit in the war team. But for the Windows division, this is it. The last thing I want to talk about is bug resolutions. For those of you on the beta program, is there anybody who's not in the beta program yet? Good. So that's all. One. I think we're all going to be added though. So one of the things we've done lately is giving you a view into what's the resolution of your bug. We translate these words, fix, duplicate, by design, into a phrase, little SQL translation, and you see the same words over and over, to try and explain what it is. But we basically, our database gives us 6 different bug resolutions that we can use. The most important is fixed. That means that somebody took that bug, and because of that specific bug, made a code change, changed a line of code, typed something in, compiled it, submitted it, and it got into the build to fix a bug, a real honest-to-God fix. I don't want to mark something as fixed if it was fixed by a different bug, right? So if Sterling makes a change and fixes a bug, and then I look at a different bug report and say, oh, that's the same thing as Sterling fixed, I want to resolve it as duplicate to that bug. I don't want to say I made a code change, because that way I can look at the number of fixed bugs and tell how many code changes per week I'm making. So I try and find the duplicate. With the thousands of bug reports we get, I can't always find the duplicate. I may not know it. It may not be quite the same words. It may not be clear that it's exactly the same bug, but the symptom, the result, the fix he made might fix it. So we try and map things to duplicates, and a duplicate will then tell you, the ultimate resolution of the bug. But it's not always possible. So unfortunately, we take some shortcuts, which I'm going to get to. The next category, sort of the generic by design, won't fix, or postponed, means that it's something that either it's working the way we expected, it's not something we can change for this release for whatever reason. It might be a third-party issue, and we actually have a variant of that called external, which we use for some third parties or other databases in the company that we don't have any control over. Sometimes fixing something might break something else. So we know exactly what to change to fix his bug, and it's going to break 40 other people's machines worse. And so we can't always do that fix. It's like a water balloon. You squeeze one side, and the other side will come out. So those are the won't fix, postpone. Some of the things we'll consider for the future builds. And the last category is not repro. So those are all very defined. What they mean is rigorous. The last category is not repro. And this is the one that's most frustrating, I think, for you guys, and why I wanted to spend a minute talking about it. One is, we've tried. We really put a lot of effort into it. We think we've got the exact scenario nailed, and we can't make it do it. So something is either different, or some fix has gone into the product somewhere. It doesn't do it anymore, right? Somebody made a fix. I can't find the duplicate. I don't know it. I don't know in thousands of bugs. So I'm just going to say it doesn't appear to do it anymore. Let's try it again. Something that might be fixed, right? I suspect it's fixed, or I'm not quite sure. Do it again. It's easier for you to reproduce it again and let us know that it's still there. And then finally, no other resolution really fits. It's a minor issue. We know we're not going to do anything with it, or we think it just falls into a bucket that is a little bit hard to deal with. We read it, we've made the assessment that it's not something we need to really push in one of these other areas, or we can't reproduce it, and it gets resolved as not repro. And so that can be frustrating because you're saying, I can repro this every single time. Are you an idiot? I try not to be, but some days I am. What happens is, if you push back, if you say, no, it's still doing it, it's still serious, it's still hitting me, or we get more reports, it can get reactivated and reconsidered. So sometimes if we resolve 200 bugs as not repro, 20 of them get pushed back as it really is and it's important, right? It's a way to filter out which issues are important, which issues are critical. So don't get frustrated. Don't let your fellow beta testers get too frustrated over too many not repros. It's the bucket. That's the only thing we have to put things if it doesn't really fit one of the other categories. We're working on some tools that will give us some better second level of resolution that'll give you some more information when we resolve them this way. I don't know if we'll have it going before the end of this product cycle or not till the next one. We have other things that the web developers sometimes have to do. But we are working on ways to get better information. We started giving you information on the resolution, and we immediately got feedback that the resolutions are confusing. We tried to clarify it. We get feedback that there's too many not repros. We learn, we're improving, we're trying to get better. Does that make sense? I mean, it's tough to do all that. Internal testing, I was just going to tell you a lot of automation, a lot of manual tests. We do self-hosting, which is where we run it on our daily machines. Automated overnight stress, where we start a program, go home, it beats on the system. It loads drivers, it changes languages, it loads millions of windows, it runs thousands of APIs, it shorts memory on the system, and it reports it all to a server. And the next morning we come in, and I can tell you that we had a 97% stress rate on a certain test, and a 92% on some other, and a bug is filed on all the failures. We go in and debug it. In order to run stress, you actually have to be hooked up to a remote debugger. So huge test. That's the daily stress. Long haul, we run servers for weeks at a time. Now it's kind of hard because you want to run it on the newest build. At the same time, you want to run it for weeks at a time and make sure that it's reliable over a long time. We run our infrastructure. We run Microsoft. We run our Windows division on Windows XP servers. And then ITG rollouts, where they roll it out to the rest of the people in the company that aren't in the development group. Quick numbers. Like I said, we've got about 16,000 English program beta testers at Beta 2, about 21,000 worldwide. These are the core feedback group. These are the breadth feedback that we get. We took the best beta testers, the most active from Windows 2000, from Windows Millennium, from some of the other programs, nominations, and we've generated a group that to date has been between 5 and 7 times more active than Windows 2000 for the same size beta group. So it is great to see that volume of feedback. It's scary too. Paul's team is working their butts off trying to keep up. Let me tell you, if you're frustrated with them dealing with your bugs, it's just because they've been so overwhelmed by all the great feedback we're getting. Typical interim downloads, when we put up the CD images, we're seeing about 3,000, anywhere between 2,000 and 4,000 people or CD images are downloaded for each of the interim builds, which is pretty phenomenal given the amount of bandwidth it takes for people to download. We get a lot of good feedback on the interims, and we actually focus more on that when we can because we know it's more current and the developers will take a look at it. On the high volume beta 2 issues I talked about, these were things where we had more than 5 reports for each bug that we were able to map to a duplicate. There were over 800 different reports and 65 issues. I thought I'd give you a status on where we stand on these high-volume beta issues. Quick snapshot from Wednesday. 13 of them are still active. We're still working on them. 39 have been fixed. That's a very high fix ratio. That shows what tracking high-volume issues will do. 7 of them have fallen into the won't fix category. 5 of those are third-party drivers where we're working with a third party. We hope to have it on Windows Update or even the dynamic update for setup. One of them is an antivirus bug that antivirus programs have to hook so deep into the operating system, it's just hard to get working with them. They usually almost always have to rev for a new version of the operating system, but we do work closely with those. And the 7th, I don't remember, but it was something internal that makes sense why we aren't fixing. It's not something, it's just an issue that's reported that we aren't fixing. 3 have been by design, again, third-party driver needed. Sometimes these resolutions kind of overlap. And 2 were third-party hardware problems. One was a motherboard problem, and one was a disk controller. And then 1 was not repro. And the interesting thing about this is it had to do with the sound volume being played for the startup sounds. One of the highest volume issues had nothing to do with the sound volume in the startup sounds. It had to do with the CD audio redbook.sys plugging into the device stack. Somebody fixed the bug elsewhere in the system that had to do with redbook.sys, and this bug went away. Right? We could have fixed the bug directly, but the fix was done elsewhere. So rather than saying it's a duplicate, because it's not really a duplicate, it's unrelated. It was just a consequence. That one is not repro. I think it's fixed in 69 or before that. So if you have the 2469. So that's an example of a not repro where it was fixed elsewhere, and so the current bug is marked as not repro because it no longer repros on current builds. Quick chart here. This just shows how the bugs flow, and the pattern is the same, but the scale is different. For beta 1 and beta 2, the bugs come in and then they kind of taper off. The spike was when we had our bug processing shut down for 3 days while they changed some back-end servers, and they all came in 3 days later. So it was a one-day spike. So that should just be spread out over those 2 days. And then you can see the interim builds show the same trend. What I need you to do, this is the last slide. Learn about Windows XP today. Put it into daily use for you and your family. Beat on it. Have high expectations. Hold us to the wall on reliability, stability. File bugs, be vocal, we want to hear you, and then help other people learn. So with that, I think I've gone way over. I know we started late, and I'll turn it over to you guys.